Hey, it's Endymion, and today I'm noticing a tonal shift in how websites and even players are responding to Marvel Rivals since its release. Some websites, like I'll show you, are calling for Rivals to stop copying Overwatch, while some fans are claiming that Rivals has already outlasted its welcome and should just stop succeeding. And all of this is pretty much just people being salty that something is genuinely fighting for the crown of relevancy from Overwatch, so let's begin. Firstly, Rivals is doing amazing. It has well over 20 million players as of the making of this video. It's doing extremely well across the board, and has player engagement numbers most of the industry wishes it could achieve these days. And I've noticed that whenever a game does well or breaks the glass ceiling, so to speak, it's never really met with praise from the traditional Western media. Marvel Rivals, to me, it feels like a repeat of Elden Ring's success or Pal Worlds to an extent as well. Games that came out that captured players' hearts and wallets led to millions in sales or engagement numbers and then became household names. Yet all of these games, to varying degrees, were attacked by the Western gaming journalism media for different but similar reasons. Pal World was spit on for being too much like Pokemon, though the game was more a survival crafter with literal guns. But the fact that it had cute monsters meant that it was riffing off Pokemon, I guess. Elden Ring was a weird case where many game developers from places like Ubisoft, and even people like Jonathan Blow, the guy who made Braid, if you remember that game. Back in 2022, when Elden Ring released, it obviously set the world on fire, and rightfully so. A game that was multiple AAA games in length and depth being sold at a premium price point with no microtransactions, battle passes, or any identity politics to be heard of. Elden Ring was, and still is in my opinion, the anti-AAA game. Something that, while yes was celebrated and rightfully so when it came to awards season, was initially pushed back against for its rejection of the Western gaming media's expectations and beliefs when it came to how games were supposed to be designed. Jonathan Blow, back then, was caught in an article which was titled "Braid Creator Jonathan Blow on why Elden Ring has no real design. It's a huge map full of a bunch of bosses." He caught a lot of flack for his comments where he said this about Elden Ring and its massive success. Elden Ring doesn't really have design per se, it's a huge map full of a bunch of bosses with different attack patterns. And the sheer scale alone is interesting and impressive. It is way bigger than anything previous, both in physical size and amount of stuff. But the amount of stuff is also kind of why there is no real design. It is just, here is a bunch of stuff we put in a bag, here's the bag. I think Blow's comments were rightfully criticized because they do not gel with what the players thought of the game as well. Elden Ring was a triumph. It's not my favorite From Software game. I still prefer Dark Souls and Bloodborne over it, but it is a masterpiece nonetheless. But like I said, when it comes to these games like Elden Ring, Pal World, and now Rivals, we're seeing history repeating itself yet again. The simple truth is this: Western gaming media and many of its developers seem to be more annoyed at these sorts of games than anything else. As if there's a taint or eye-roll worthy response whenever a game not made by Western developers is praised or finds success. Cause yeah, in case you don't know, all those games alongside Rivals are not made in the West. They do not adhere to the ideologies or tenets of what Western gaming development technically calls the gold standard when it comes to what gamers should expect. Pal World has too much content and is only $30 to $40 depending on your region. Elden Ring is so big and From Software is stupid in someone like Jonathan Blow's eyes for selling it all for only $80 Canadian, when they could have easily split the experience into 3 separate games and then sold it for more. Rivals is free to play, sure, but it is also getting attacked and lambasted by both games journalists and even players because, like these other games, they seem to not be happy that yet another Asian-made product is, like it keeps happening these days, absolutely bodying their Western games in comparison. Look, I enjoy Rivals a lot. I play it every now and then, mostly with my girlfriend who really enjoys the game and loves playing it too. I've come around to other characters and have found certain heroes like Captain America, who I originally wrote off as not being very interesting to play, to now be someone I almost always want to pick due to how badass he actually is to use once you understand him. Getting to bully my enemies and deflect their shots back at them, soaring high into their backline only to crush Jeff's tiny skull, is satisfying to me always. I feel like I'm leading my team into Normandy. If Normandy had talking sharks and pop stars and sassy billionaires in robot suits and a big green guy who can't find a shirt that fits him. What I also find very interesting about Rivals is how competently made it is from the get-go. It feels as though NetEase, a Chinese developer and company that made the game, knew what it wanted to be right away, and then executed it through to completion almost effortlessly. I mean, taking one look at the myriad of intros and character animations as you can see on screen here, they all just look insane. Each one is a beautifully made animation that keeps your eyes engaged, and it feels like a dopamine hit every time you lay your eyes on one of these things. Psylocke in particular is just badass. Like, look how cool this is, dude. It's just awesome all around. Obviously, when it comes to games these days, it's very hard to find an audience, especially within the AAA space. Everyone is stuck to what they're doing already, but then Rivals comes along and breaks the mold. But that is not a good thing apparently, because Rivals should not exist because it's eating into Overwatch's pie. A game that champions and enforces Western gaming culture and principles. Take this article from Screen Rant that's titled, "I'm already getting tired of Marvel Rivals and it's completely Overwatch's fault." Screen Rant spends the entirety of the article claiming that the similarities between Overwatch and Rivals are too much, and that Rivals does not have a distinct enough personality, which I disagree because both games right away look completely different in terms of visual design. They're both high concept and flashy, sure, but Rivals has this very deliberate comic book design to it that I personally just love to look at. I would want a single player game that looks like this starring these heroes. I would love a Spider-Man game where everyone looks like a comic book. Kinda makes me yearn for that awesome Ultimate Spider-Man game back in the day. Remember that one? What an awesome game, man. And you could play both as Spider-Man and Venom, and then just run around the city swinging around fighting crime, or in Venom's case, eating people for energy and fighting the military. Man, give me that with Rivals design and you got my money instantly. I think it's obviously stupid to not admit that Rivals and Overwatch do have similarities. They do, of course. They're both multiplayer games. They have similar game modes, and it's obvious that Rivals does take inspiration from Overwatch. But let's not play dumb. Every game, especially in AAA, takes inspiration from other games all of the time. Overwatch takes inspiration from Team Fortress and more. Even Elden Ring, to an extent, is just derivative of From Software's previous games. They even use similar weapon icons that are in Dark Souls 2. Just because games take inspiration from others, it's not a bad thing. Sometimes those similarities can lead to wildly cool products. After all, if you think about it, Dark Souls is just 3D Castlevania Symphony of the Night pretty much, with a unique respawn concept. I think games that are Souls-like, such as Neo or Liza P, they're awesome. Do they have inspiration from Software's games? Absolutely they do. But this doesn't make those games any less enjoyable, since they both offer different things within their games to differ themselves too. Neo has tons of loot and customizable skill sets and combos. Liza P has the unique upgrade system, weapon arm, and more. Rivals is like that to me, a game that takes inspiration from something else while still being its own thing. And I think it's dumb to claim that Overwatch doesn't owe some modicum of success thanks to Marvel either. I mean, it's a hero shooter. Its entire concept is built on bringing together a group of unlikely heroes to face threats and have characters that have superhuman abilities. Overwatch is just Blizzard's version of the Avengers, which are a team of superheroes that have existed well before even Blizzard themselves did. I think all of it's fine. I don't blame Overwatch for what they're doing the same way I do Rivals or Palworld or Elden Ring either. All of these games can and will continue to exist because there's obviously an audience for them, and I think having these sorts of competitive products, it's only really a net positive. Like, I'm excited for the new Superman movie, even though it is just another superhero flick at first glance, but I still want to see it, even if I've seen things like it plenty of times before already. Screen Rant, as they then state here, Marvel Rivals feels like an Overwatch relaunch with new heroes. Fair enough if that's their opinion, but I'm personally fine with it because it's clear that Overwatch will never reach the hype or pedigree that it used to have. That game has been swarmed by activist fans and developers alike. I mean, for God's sakes, the skins are just getting kinda weird. Here's Toph from Avatar in the Fortnite shop, and then here's Toph-inspired skin in Overwatch. Yeah, no thanks, I wouldn't want that skin even if it was free. My problem with Overwatch especially is the political angle of its developers and how even their newer heroes, they just feel like reiterations of other heroes that they have in the game already. I, like many of you, are sick and tired of games that are going out of their way to tell you this character's sexuality or gender. As if me knowing that Venture and Overwatch being non-binary has any bearing or gameplay difference when it comes to playing that character. How about you stop pushing stuff that nobody cares about and then make better skins and make your game more like it used to be, Blizzard? It's obvious that Blizzard is very salty about Rivals existing because that 20 million players and growing audience is being carved out of Overwatch's pie. And 20 million is nothing to laugh at. Rivals has already had almost as many players as Elden Ring has had copies sold. Of course, Screen Rant continues stating that Rivals is nothing but a bad clone of a better game, where they say, any Overwatch player is likely to recognize even more similarities. Squirrel Girl's acorns and ability to launch herself into the air both feel very Junkrat. Though the two heroes are different in some ways, Magneto's shield feels very reminiscent of Reinhardt's. Scarlet Witch's basic attack is essentially the same as Symmetra's, and Hawkeye essentially feels like a slightly reworked Hanzo. Luna Snow may be one of the most egregious examples, with her skating ability, role as a healer, and role as a musician all being very similar to Lucio, whose name even sounds like Luna Snow. Screen Rant is reaching really hard here, I think we can all agree. Firstly, claiming that Magneto's shield feels like Reinhardt's is ridiculous. Magneto can't even keep his shield up for more than a few seconds at best. If you want a real comparison, Magneto is more if like Sigma, Zarya, and Reinhardt were fused into a single character, and then even then, that's not really all that he can do, but it at least would be more accurate. Just because a character has a shield doesn't mean that it's like Reinhardt. That's like saying every character who can run and jump is a ripoff of Mario. Jumping is not a patented mechanic, nor is holding a shield up. I guess my Tarnished and Elden Ring is also a Reinhardt clone too, because I can pull my shield up too. See how dumb that sounds? And then claiming that Scarlet Witch is just Symmetra, that's not really true either. A better comparison would have been to make that, Scarlet Witch is more like Moira, if anything. And let me guess, they'll also say that Scarlet Witch is also ripping off Diva because her super obliterates everyone in a certain radius around her too. And I think the Hawkeye-Hanzo comparison is dumb too. Hawkeye has existed for literal decades well before Hanzo ever did. If anything, Hanzo owes the character Hawkeye for making the concept of a badass archer hero mainstream to pave the way for him. And like, what did you want Hawkeye to use then in comparison? Just his sword? A gun? He's Hawkeye, for God's sakes. The dude is like the OG bow user in comics, well, besides Green Arrow, but you get the point. And the field comparison of Lucio's name and Luna Snow sounding similar is just, come on, Screen Rant, this is just bad journalism. Which, I mean, for gaming websites, that about comes as natural to them as breathing, but let's keep moving it along. This brings me to Matt Piscatella. He's a gaming analyst who combs through information like a fat kid looking for his lollipop. As Matt Piscatella shows here, Rivals was the third most played game on PlayStation. Only Fortnite and Call of Duty Black Ops 6 beat it out. On Xbox, it was number 4, with Roblox and the other usual suspects beating it. However, on Steam, if you can believe it, Rivals beat everything, with Path of Exile 2 trailing behind it even. Case in point, the Gooner bait worked, my brothers and sisters. Everyone and their grandfather has been playing Rivals. Even the games journalists out there who don't even play video games have been playing Rivals, which is saying something. Now, what they really need to do is force Kevin Feige and the other people at Marvel into their leather chairs over there at Disney to sit there and watch these intros and outros for characters in Rivals on repeat until the message gets through their thick skulls. Because nobody wants to play as Kamala Khan or Miss Marvel as you may know her, and more people actually want to see stuff like Squirrel Girl and her ass sets. The point is that if you want your sales and profits to be harder than Venom's butt cheeks, you gotta keep delivering the goods to the fans. I mean, my god, Marvel Rivals even made it easier for modders to access the full body models of their various characters. And some of these models are so detailed, there's no way that NetEase did this without realizing it. It's either someone on the NetEase team is a gooner extraordinaire, or everyone, even the guy leading the project, knew of this. And my guess is the latter, that in fact Rivals is simply made by men of culture, dudes who love the finer things in life, and ladies, don't worry, I see you too. Actually, women are usually even more egregious when it comes to gooning, if I'm being honest, but the point still stands that if you have any level of fascination or love for the human form, you're probably going to be pro Rivals over Overwatch anyway. Because ultimately, while the battle for the soul of the hero shooter is ever going, the truth is that the real war to win when it comes to these games aren't player numbers or skins sold. It's ensuring there's a thriving community of people who pander to a very specific group of players out there. The ones who ask the hard questions like, who would win in a wrestling match between Squirrel Girl and Psylocke? Or how much oil can be reasonably used on, say, the Hulk? And well, you get the idea. As long as you can keep that community happy, you can have a dead game, but the legend would still live on anyway. The point is that Rivals is getting smeared because it feels like a game made in the early 2000s from a character design point at least. Every man is a dude, every woman is 2 steps away from becoming an OnlyFans model, and Jeff is just cute. Look at him, he's just a nice guy. Well, when he isn't swallowing your entire team in Amazon priming them off a cliff, that is. Although, according to Screen Rant, Marvel Rivals needs to have a more unique identity, but I disagree. I think Rivals knows exactly where it needs to stand, which is between the players and the gooners in equal measure. The reason why Overwatch has pretty much died, besides its moronic rejection of its single-player mode and overpromises, is that it just never really needed a sequel. They killed the original game to replace it with the same thing again, but with a 2 slapped on it. And of course, pretty much every hero released thus far during Overwatch 2's lifespan has been some ethnic diverse woman almost exclusively. Which is why even I was puzzled when I saw that the news hero was Hazard, a white Scottish guy of all things. I guess player counts are so bad and money is getting tight that Blizzard is trying to pull in the white demographic. But it's too late for Blizzard now. Nobody cares if they added a white male playable character, because everyone is too busy fondling Squirrel Girl's nuts and looking over their shoulder hoping that Jeff isn't coming to hurl them off a cliff to their demise. The point of the matter here is that Overwatch and many of these Western-aligned places have lost sight of what the paying customers want. Concord died because nobody in their right mind wanted to spend any money dressing up those abominations. And you knew Concord was cooked when even the modding community refused to fix the character designs. You know how ugly and bad your game has to be that even the gooners ignore you? But that is what happened, and I think the less Rivals caters to what Western journalists want, the better they'll keep on doing. You didn't see Blizzard getting angry when Concord was released because they took one look at that roster and went, oh, we're safe, they're even uglier than we are. But here comes Rivals looking like Megan Fox in the first Transformers, and now suddenly having another hero shooter on the market is a problem. The fact of the matter is that complaining that another game is eating your pie only matters if you were actually catering to the same crowd, but you aren't Blizzard, and you know that. There's far too many feminists with septum piercings working there that will moan and cry if any female characters don't pass their approval tests. Even some fans are complaining, saying that Rivals is not better than Overwatch. There's this entire article by FandomWire about this very thing, where they compile multiple posts of players trying to convince themselves and others to just go back to Overwatch. Like this one user, I don't want to read everything they said to you, but I'll put it on screen and then paraphrase it. Pretty much they admit that Rivals has better time to kill and a better selection of heroes than Overwatch, but the game has overtuned supers and the lack of a role queue that is hurting the game. Fair enough in my opinion, although the role queue thing is apparently by design. There's been plenty of articles about that already too, where many sites are complaining that players need to stop playing duelists so much and NetEase needs to put in a role queue. But then here's my question, all of these people are complaining saying that Rivals is too much like Overwatch, then it has something that differs it per se to Overwatch with no role queue. But now Rivals is bad because it is not enough like Overwatch, yet it's bad when it does anything that Overwatch does. You see what I mean? You can't really win with these people. I think the lack of role queue is fine for the most part, but granted, I don't play competitive because I value my sanity and time. I just play casually, which I think 99% of the player base also does. Sure, I guess if you're that 1% that needs to push themselves and sweat gallons every match to win, I could see how this could be a bad move for you. But ultimately, when it comes to games like this, you're better off serving the casual fans over the hardcore ones anyway. I'd rather have 20 million people just playing my game for fun and spending money than alienating or limiting those people for that top 1%. Probably the best move in my opinion would be to simply add role queue, but to competitive modes only, and then keep it out of regular play. That way, at least the hardcore players out there can then deal with that limitation and then what they can use and strategize around that, but leave the free-form gameplay of quick match to people who don't care for those things. I mean, for me it doesn't matter either way since I mostly play healers and tanks anyways, because to be honest, most DPS players are idiots anyways, and it's really easy to kill them because they have no concept of survival, just point and shoot most of the time. So for someone like me, the more DPS the better in my opinion, just means that my kills will keep going up and I'll win more games in the long run. And if they do have a healer, well, that's what Captain America is for, so I can give them a nice bonk on their big stupid heads with my Vibranian shield. Honestly, if you want to enjoy hero shooters, it's probably best you just avoid competitive altogether. I do the same thing with Fortnite too. I have no interest in sweating and getting angry to increase my rank in these games. I, like many of you, just want to unwind and have fun, but then again, I'm a primarily single player kind of gamer myself, so I only play these games to have fun with friends anyway. If I lose a game, I don't really care, but if you're a streamer who sweats all day, yeah, I get it. Like this other user stated, they enjoy Rivals, but they quit ranked play after just a short while because again, that stuff is just annoying to play through. But I think when the large argument here is that these gaming sites, journalists, developers, and even players are demanding people abandon Rivals for Overwatch because it's too similar or whatever, it just kind of reeks of jealousy. And I'm tired of always seeing the same kind of conversation pop up whenever a new game comes out that yet again beats the Western expectations and status quo like this. Rivals only sucks to people at Blizzard because it's beating them. If it wasn't doing as well, they wouldn't mind, just like they did with Concord. But they left a hole that was too large to not fill in response, and now they're mad that people are going somewhere else to get their fix. You can't get mad that someone else is providing what you lack. You just gotta learn and adapt to ensure that you can provide better going forward. This whole let's attack and belittle the Asian-made game shtick is getting more annoying as time passes by. If Western devs want to stop losing to Eastern ones, then they gotta get good and stop crying. These journalists are just going to make people want to play Rivals more. As for the players, they're entitled to their own opinions. since objectively they don't benefit monetarily wise either way, but of course the West would love for everything not made by them to fail. But that's just not the case. It won't be going forward ever again, like I said in another video. The West needs to smarten up fast before China ends up owning the entire industry at this point. And it's not a matter of if but when that happens, and when it does, they can really only blame themselves. We keep telling you guys to give us great games with no ideology, but then you refuse to, so what do you want players to do then? You ask me, the only person they can blame are themselves. It's ultimately a monster of their own making. And they're doing nothing but crying as the waves pull them under. But thank you for watching, subscribe, have a great day, thanks to all the support, and I'll see you guys next time.